Welcome to the AI Research Roundup. I'm Alex. Today we're looking at a paper from the Hugging Face trending list, published on September 8th, 2025, about 7 days ago. The standout is a compact reinforcement learning recipe and inference scaffold that turns reasoning-optimized models into autonomous single agents for deep research, with the best variant reaching 28.7% on humanity's last exam. The paper is titled SFR-DeepResearch Towards Effective Reinforcement Learning for Autonomously Reasoning Single Agents. And as we will see later, the implications for model training are quite significant. The work stabilizes long-horizon tool use, preserves chain-of-thought quality, and uses entirely synthetic data with verifier-graded rewards. On X, commenters highlight autonomous single agents that research with web search, browsing, and a stateless Python tool, note-length normalized reinforcement learning, and single-turn scaffolding, and cite the 28.7% HLE result. Engagement ranges from modest to strong, with one post near 1,000 likes. The previous segment covered the headline results and social reception. Figure 1 now illustrates the single-turn agent workflow that stabilizes long-horizon tool use. The diagram shows user context accumulating across steps while the assistant alternates between reasoning and tool calls, which include search, browse, a clean memory action to prevent overflow, and a stateless Python call. The memory cleaning step keeps trajectories within the context window, so later steps can summarize evidence and produce the final answer. Alright, the previous figure outlined the single-turn workflow that managed context and tools. Table 1 now reports benchmark scores, which compare proprietary agents and open models under a contamination block list, so the numbers reflect cleaner evaluation. The standout result is a best HLE score of 28.7% for the 20 billion parameter variant, while proprietary systems like GPT-5 Pro score higher but are not open. The table also shows gains on FRAMES and GAIA where available, highlighting consistent improvements for the reinforced agents. Alright, the previous table highlighted broad gains across benchmarks. Table 1 compares multi-agents and single agents side by side, and the bottom block lists the reinforced single agents with their backbones and scores. The standout row reports SFR-DR 20B with GPT-OSS 20B, which reaches 82.8 on FRAMES, 66.0 on GAIA, and 28.7% on HLE. The 8 and 32 billion versions also improve, so the recipe scales while remaining tool efficient. So the previous table contrasted backbones and scores. Figure 2 shows how trajectory length evolved during reinforcement learning, comparing standard advantage against length normalized advantage. The red curve climbs steadily, which signals escalating tool calls that coincided with a drop on humanity's last exam. The blue curve stays near 5 steps and ends with a higher HLE score because dividing advantage by trajectory length discourages wasteful loops. The takeaway is that length normalization stabilizes behavior and improves accuracy. Well, Figure 2 showed why length normalization kept trajectories sane. Table 2 compares the single-turn agent workflow against the default multi-turn chat template, which matters because the workflow alone can shift scores without training. The single-turn setup lifted QN 38 billion from 52.5 to 58.8 on FRAMES and nudged HLE from 8.8 to 9.9. QWQ 32 billion rose from 58.0 to 68.0 on FRAMES, and from 12.3 to 13.9 on HLE, so the scaffold delivered training-free gains. Alright, the previous table showed training-free gains from the single-turn scaffold. Figure 3 compares pre-reinforcement learning and post-reinforcement learning behavior, which reveals how the recipe shifts tool use and step-level token lengths on humanity's last exam. The left panel shows tool usage rising modestly for 8 billion and 32 billion, and by 28% for 20 billion. The right panel shows response lengths growing for 8 and 32 billion, but shrinking by 29% for 20 billion, which signals more concise reasoning with better targeting. Okay, 2 takeaways stand out. The single-turn agent, scaffold, and clean memory tool stabilize long research trajectories, and length-normalized reinforcement learning curbs tool bloat while preserving reasoning, delivering sizable gains like 28.7% on humanity's last exam. The broader implication is practical, scalable, single-agent research without heavy multi-agent orchestration. That is it for this episode of the AI Research Roundup. I am Alex. Thanks for listening.